Hello, this is Bill Webb, aka Billy Indiana. Today I'm continuing my alphabet challenge. I was challenged by Alicia and Dwayne from Blackboard Gaming, and they, I think, had been challenged by Reggie from Rolling.Reggie. Since then, I've done my A, B, C, D, E, F. I'm kind of following the pattern of the numbers on the phone, so each number represents a certain number of letters. So we did that video. I'll put a link up here in case you want to check that out. Since then, I've seen Jeff and Jamie from Foster the Meeple do their version, Billy and Michelle from Second Star to the Left. I've seen Julian and Abby from Boxed Meeples. So several people have carried out their own versions of the alphabet challenge. Today I'm going to do numbers 4 and 5, I think, on the phone. So we're going to do G, H, I, and J, K, L. If you're curious to see what my top games are for each of those letters, stay tuned. Well, I'd like to again thank Alicia and Dwayne for the challenge. I've had a great time going through my catalog of games and picking out my favorites from each letter. The way I'm doing it is I'm limiting myself to games that I currently own. I've made one slight exception because I'll explain that later. And then I'm also, obviously I've had to have played it and ranked it. And then I'm just picking a few games that are really kind of in the running for the best game in that letter, and then selecting my top one. So let's get to G. G, my first game, you can kind of see here in the corner, is Goa. This is a Z-Man's edition. It's got several expansions. It's called the New Edition. It's a game by Rudiger Dorn. And this one I've only played once. That's why it didn't take the cake, but I could see it possibly becoming number one. It's really a great game. It's got some terrific mechanisms. There's an auction system where you've got these tiles out there, and each player, the first player says, well, we're going to auction this one, and then everybody else has to pick a tile adjacent to that to auction. Then you go through the auctions, and you're going to gain the different things from that auction, and then you're going to play your actions, and there's a real strong action economy. And there's this like tech tree area too where you're building up your strength to have so many ships and to ship so many goods and things like that. So really a unique integration of different themes, and really love it. If I had played it more than once, it might have been number one. It's really neck and neck for the two that I was considering, but it ended up number two just because I've only played it the one time. And then the number one game is Gugong, and this one I played a lot. I played solo, 2-player, 4-player. This is a Tasty Minstrel version game. It's an Andreas Stedding game. Really clever system of, there's cards on the table, and it's based on this cultural phenomenon in ancient China where bribing was outlawed. So if you needed to bribe someone, you would just give them a really nice gift, and then they would just give you a really terrible gift in return. So it's kind of like bribing because you're giving them a much better gift. But the idea is that there's cards out there, and so if there's a 3 card out there, I could play a 4 and take that card to my hand, and then I could take the action of where that card was placed. And where the cards are placed are sort of like little worker placement areas, or almost like little mini games in some cases. There's a Great Wall, and you're trying to see who contributes most to building up the Great Wall. There's a Jade market and all these different kinds of things. So you're picking where you want to go, but you have to have a card that beats it if you want to get the best action and not have to spend your workers. And if you have a lesser card, a lower number, then you have to spend some workers in order to take that action. And you're also trying to move up this middle track, and you have to get to the top of the middle track to have a chance to win. If you don't make it to the top, you're not eligible to win. So that's a kind of a unique twist as well, and you get some bonuses along the way. So Gugong, really beautiful art, really clever game. I love the cultural connection, and I enjoy it. It's one of my favorites, and my favorite in the letter G. All right, letter H. Oh, by the way, I have 5 games only in the letter G, so there wasn't a lot of competition, but those 2 are actually 2 of my favorites overall. So even if there was more, they would have been my top 2. For the letter H, I actually have 10, but most of them aren't necessarily games that I play a lot, some smaller games. And the 2 favorite, actually, one I've owned twice, but both times I've given it away. So I bought it, loved it, gave it to my daughter and her family, and then bought another one, played it, loved it, gave it to my other daughter and her family. So I've had 2 copies. I don't currently have a copy, but I intend to get one. So I'm counting it, and that is Her Story. I'll put a picture here. Her Story is by Underdog Games, and it's a really interesting game where you're celebrating famous women throughout history from all different cultures. And it's got a really nice mechanism of play as well. You're basically writing a book of these famous women. And so you're drafting chapters, and as you draft them, you get some points, but then you have to collect these little, there's like research and writing. I forget what the little icons stand for. You're collecting these little icons, almost like Splendor, to put them actually into your book so you can get it published. And every time you do, the women at the bottom of the cards will have maybe you get some extra research icons and they're permanent, so you would have them, you would have to keep collecting them. Then you also have some, usually some bonus, some have that kind of bonus, some have another kind of bonus like in-game scoring or an ongoing bonus every round you get to take advantage of. So it's really beautiful production, really terrific theme, great gameplay. So her story is right up there. And I would probably pick that, but since I don't have it, it's like edged out by the one that I do have. And it also is kind of weird because this version of it starts with J, Jishi Academy. But actually, if you look this up on BGG, it doesn't even list this. It lists it just as a version. So Hanamakoji is the H game. And so I'm kind of throwing a tie. I picked this one just because her story is not here presently with me. I don't have a copy currently. But Hanamakoji is a great two-player game. You're vying for, in this case, students. You're trying to convince these students to join your school, and you're playing cards, and there's this really cool mechanism where you have these different actions. So you might use one action to hide 2 cards or discard 2 cards for that round. Take another action to hide 1, and you reveal at the end of the round. Take one action to put 2 out, and you choose 1, or the other person chooses 1, you choose 1. Put 3 out, they choose 1, you get 2. So really interesting things that you're trying to then play the best cards by each of the students to take control. And if you ever have 4 of them, or I think it's 11 points total, because they're all valued at different number values. If you do at the end of the round have 4 under your influence, or I think it's 11 points, then you win. Really nice, interesting game, very simple and quick to play. So Hanamakoji, my version is the Jishi Academy version of it. And so that's the letter H. All right, on to the letter I. I've got 3 games. We have 6 in our collection. Let's start with I. The first one I want to mention is Islebound. This is a Ryan Lockett game by Red Raven Games. And at Islebound, one unique thing is you're moving around on the board, but you can either win by conquest or diplomacy. And then there's also this unique feature in the game where when you're playing and you have these different actions, you can go ahead and kind of boast or brag about it to earn points. And there's a really cool, clever track down at the bottom where I think it's renowned. I forget the word. It might be renowned. It's been a little bit since we played this one last, but there's these little cubes and you take them in order. And there's a different amount of points depending on when you take them and how many you take. So lots of little clever twists to this. The art, as always, is beautiful. So Islebound is one of our favorites in the letter I. Another one that I'll mention is one we haven't played in quite a while, but another Rudiger Dorn. So I mentioned Goa earlier and rearranged a few things here to make some room. But this Rudiger Dorn game, Istanbul, I have the big box version. Istanbul is a kind of a modern classic, and it's terrific. You've got these tiles, and with the big box expansion, there's different ways to set it up with coffee and other things that are in addition to the base game if you've played that. But in your turn, you're moving around your workers, you're sending them out to work, and you're leaving them in different spots to do their job, but then you have to either go to the fountain to draw them all back, call them all back to send them out on new jobs, or you have to go backtrack and visit them again. So it's basically designed around creating these circuits of actions, and again, an action economy depending on, you don't really want to go to the fountain and draw them all back. You want to keep them out and make circuits where you can go in circles and take those actions over and over again. So Istanbul, a terrific game. You're basically trying to gather these jewels and be the first one to reach the maximum number of jewels. I think it might be 12. It's been a little while since we played this one too, but Istanbul is terrific. One of our favorite I games as well. But my favorite I game is one by Christian Martinez, Matago edition, and this is Inish. And I've heard they're coming out with a big box, and I don't have Seasons of Inish, the expansion, so if the big box rumors are true, I can't wait for that. But Inish is such a unique, feels like a war dudes on a map game, but it's more about the card play. And it's got this little chess feeling where you have to declare, I am capable of winning, and then people have a chance to stop you. It's like saying check, and they have a chance to get out of it before you say checkmate. So it's really cool, and it's got like passive-aggressive battling. So you come in and say, hey, do you want to battle? Yeah, let's battle. Okay, battle a little bit. Do you want to keep going, or are you done? It's like, it's just interesting. I say, so you move into battle and say, oh, I don't want to battle. I'm just going to retreat. I'm going to put this guy in the citadel. So many interesting things. It looks like it's going to be this war game, and it's not. And then if you take over these territories, you get these special cards, you get your special abilities, and it really comes down to when you take the cards and when you play the cards, that's the clever decision making. And when you move your troops, because there's different win conditions. It's sometimes by, if you have dominance over a certain number of other players' troops in different regions, or if you have control of a certain number of regions, or I think it's if you have people in different sanctuaries, a certain number of sanctuaries. I think the magic number is kind of 6, if I'm remembering correctly, because it's been a little while since I played this one too. Unfortunately, I just have so many games and I'm always playing new games. I need to get these back to the table. But yeah, Inish is so clever. The art is really unique. It's got, you can tell by the box that the art is really unique, but the gameplay is so clever, so different. And that's what makes Inish my #1 game of the I category. If we move on to J, I only have 4 games in the J category. And I'll mention 3 because 3 really we've played a ton and are really great games. The first one I don't actually have because I loaned it out to a friend, and that's Just One. And it is just one game that's great for almost any scenario. You can play with anybody. You are basically showing a list of words, and one person whose turn it is to pick the word will pick one without seeing it, and then everybody else is going to give them a one-word clue and write on these little plastic easels with whiteboard markers. And then if any of those clues, then all of them reveal their clues while the person who's going to guess has got their eyes closed. And if any of the clues are repeated, they cancel each other out. And so then whatever clues are left, the person that's guessing then opens their eyes, sees the remaining clues, and tries to guess that one word. It's really a fun party game. Anyone can play it. I've played it with all kinds of groups, and it just goes over well all the time. And it's tempting to pick that as my #1, but while that's an awesome game that I love playing and it always goes over well, the other 2 games, if I just had to pick for any situation, just my preference personally, I would pick one of these other 2. So this is Jaipur. It's a great little 2-player game. You're choosing when you want to gather these tokens, because if you gather them sooner, they're worth more points. You're also choosing cards from a little collection, and sometimes you're choosing different rubies or whatever. I forget what the different jewels are. Let's see if it says on here, just as good. So there's spices and fabric and things like that. But there's also camels, and so you can choose to take a certain number of cards. You can take all the camels. And my wife and I used to play this a ton. Haven't played it in a while. I think I'll probably take it on vacation this week and see if we can get a few more games in, because it's such a really fun game. Jaipur, and this one is the Space Cowboys game. It's Sebastian Pochin. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name, but terrific game. And that is one, if I was going to pick one just to play anytime, I'd probably pick that over Just One. But then my favorite J game, it's no contest, and this is Jiraku. And this is the deluxe edition. It's got beautiful art, a bigger board. I've got a comparison between the original and this version video. I'll put that link up above. But this game's a really cool game. It's kind of an area control or area majority as you're moving along, but the areas change. And it's trick-taking as well, but it's a unique trick-taking where, for instance, if someone plays a 6 and you play a ninja, 6 is the highest card, but the ninja beats the 6. And sometimes you actually want to lose a trick. And every time you play a card in a trick, depending on the number, you either get to put soldiers out on that numbered segment of the map, or you get to either move soldiers on the map to try to get them into the region that's going to be scored in the next round. So many clever things to think about for Jiraku. If you want to learn more about it, you can check out that video. It's one of my favorite all-time games, so it's definitely my favorite J game. All right, next up, K games. We actually only have 4 in our collection under the letter K as well. And this one, kind of hard to pick too, because several really good ones. 3 that I'm going to mention out of the 4. One is I'm going to show you the King Domino Origin version, and I have a couple other King Domino versions. I've got the giant King Domino game, which is really fun. This Origins, I think, is better, though. I actually gave away my original base King Domino when we got this one, because this one has a few expansions that you can kind of mix and match in, and you can play it almost as simple as the original King Domino, or you can slightly upgrade it, or you can upgrade it even more to make it a little bit more gamey. More things to think about in the scoring. So King Domino Origins is really a lot of fun, and one of the best K games I have. The next one I'm going to mention is one that I really enjoy, Kemet, and this is the Blood and Sand version. And I used to have the old Kemet version. I played it a couple times with my wife, and and during that time I was loving it, so I went ahead and backed Blood and Sand. And then after we played it a few times, I was like, you know what, I really don't like this game. And so by then I'd already backed this, and now I have this and haven't even played it. I hope to play it with my game group, because I know a lot of them would love it. But we just don't get it to the table very often. So even though I love it, I'm not going to pick it as my #1 K game. But it is terrific. So Kemet, and that is a Matago game. And let's see if I can get that down without knocking it over. There we go. All right, but my #1 game, and this is one that my wife really does love to play, and also I do. It's so relaxing, Kohaku. It's a nice tile drafting and tile laying game, and you are trying to draft tiles. You always have to draft a fish and a decoration together, and they have to be adjacent on the main board. And then you're putting it out in your board, and you're trying to get, for instance, little guppies by the rocks so they can be protected, and you want frogs by the mosquitoes so that they can eat the mosquitoes. And so you're trying to pattern out your tiles and score them accordingly. We have the acrylic tile version with the 3D imagery on the tile. So beautiful, so relaxing. It's really quick to play, really easy to learn. It's got this, in our version, it's got this nice little neoprene mat that you put the tiles on to draft from. So really gorgeous game, really easy to play. This one is by 25th Century, and it's Danny Devine, or Danny Devine, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but yeah, so Kahaku is my favorite K game of the 4 we have. So we got GHI, JK, and now to the last letter, and the last letter is where I have a bunch of games. Let me scroll up so I can see. We actually have 20 games in the letter L, and many of them are some of my favorites. So I'm going to talk to you about 6 of them, but I'll do it very briefly. So first up, Lions of Lydia. This is a Johnny Pack game. I think it's by Bellwether Games. Yeah, Bellwether Games. This one is a really cool game where you've got a central palace area, and you're going to send your market palace area. There's these gates, and you're going to send your workers out, and you either go to the gate to get more workers, or you're going to go to the middle, or I think it's the gate to get the actions, or the middle to get more workers. It might be vice versa. You have this bag, and you're going to put workers in the bag, but there's only ever 4 in there. And so it's kind of not really a bag builder, but a bag manipulator. And there's a whole bunch of expansions in this game. Really clever, almost kind of engine building. You got these resources you're marking on this track. Lions of Lydia is a terrific game. Not my top game, but I had to mention it. It was just, there. Like I said, I have 20 games, and there are so many of them that are great, but this one I just had to mention it because I love it so much. Another one is many people's favorite, and that's Lost Ruins of Ardak by Min and Elwyn CGE, Czech Games Edition. I really like this game, and I don't own the expansion. I played it with the expansion, though, and I do believe it's better with the expansion with the asymmetric leaders or explorers. So I do like it. I like the research track. I like going out and battling the guardians, and there's a lot of really cool things. I think they've integrated some theme into there. It's got a little bit of deck building. It's got some resource management. So it's got a lot of really cool things. Some of the other ones that it's often compared to, I like better in those comparisons. But in the L group, it is one of my favorite games. And so Lost Ruins of Arnak is up there, but not necessarily in my top couple. Now, my next cluster of games I'm going to kind of group together because they're all a little bit different, but they all surround one theme, and that is Lord of the Rings, which is definitely my favorite IP. And I have a lot more Lord of the Rings games than what I'm going to show you. This is one of my favorites. This is the old Reiner Knizia classic. You've got these maps. You're working as hobbits, and you're collectively trying to get the ring to Mordor. But along the way, Sauron's eye is coming towards you on this one track, and you're moving on all these different maps. You're using clever card play cooperatively. And it really comes, the theme comes out to me. The card play is really clever. We love cooperative games. And so this is an older game that doesn't necessarily get a ton of love, although they have put out a bunch of printings of it. So I guess maybe it does get more than I think. But I absolutely love it. One of my favorite games, and again, in one of my favorite IPs. Another one that I've played quite a bit in that IP, Lord of the Rings, I have the Living Card Game. This is the collector's edition that I started with, and then I've bought several others. I need to get this back to the table. It's been a while since I played. But this Fantasy Flight game, it's so much fun to just live out the adventures of the Lord of the Rings and see which kind of monsters you're going to have to overcome and which kind of locations you're going to have to overcome, and use, again, cooperatively playing together. So I played it solo some, with my wife some, and really, I need to get this back to the table. It's been a minute. So, but Lord of the Rings Living Card Game, another one that I really love in the L. And then the last Lord of the Rings IP game that I love, and I have a hard time ranking those 3. I love all 3 of these, and I have others too, but these are my top 3. Journeys in Middle-earth. This is another cooperative game, and it's got app integration, and you're building out this map, exploring, and you've got these different challenges. There's also some interesting card play here with equipment, and I think the app integration on this one's terrific. The first time we played, we were at my brother's house, and my son, my wife, and my brother and I played, and we put the app up on his big screen TV on the wall, and the sound was up, and it felt like we're almost living in a movie with that. It was all surround sound around us. Terrific game, love it, and it's a great one to get back to over and over again. So Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, another terrific one. But my favorite game, even as much as I love Lord of the Rings, my favorite game of all time, overall, I think, and it's because of the great experiences we've had, and I don't even think it's necessarily the best game I own, but it's the game that I've had the most fun with through the years, and that is Legends of Andor. So this is a Cosmos game by Michael Menzel, and Michael Menzel's art in every game he does art for is just terrific. So if you've seen his art, you probably would agree his art is amazing. But he's developed some really cool games. The Adventures of Robin Hood is one that he's developed recently that we really liked, but this one is the one that got us. This is really one that helped me take a deep dive into gaming. I had started kind of diving in a little bit, and I had started growing my collection up to around 20 or 30 games, which for some people that's a ton. For For me, that's become a small part of my collection now, but Legends of Andor is one that we had so much fun playing, and there were so many times where we thought, oh, we are not surviving this. And then lucky dice rolls and great card play and just strategic decisions. My son is really good at puzzling out things. And we, oh, if we do this, we can make it happen. And there were some times where we just thought, there's no way we're winning this, and pulled a rabbit out of the hat kind of win. And there's other times when we're moving along, we think we're cruising, and all of a sudden, oh man, just bad thing after bad thing after bad thing comes up, and the card flips, and you're living out these stories of adventure. We always feel like we're on an adventure, and we have so much fun puzzling it out. There's this timer. You're taking your actions in a day clock sequence, so you have to be the one that's furthest back on the day clock, and then eventually go to sleep for that day. And so many clever things in the design of this game. And if you like adventure, if you like cooperative games, if you like combination of card rolling and dice playing and some bad guys moving on the map and story built in, it's not a ton of reading like some stories. It's more minimal, kind of like Above and Below, where there's like little snippets more than big storylines. But Legends of Andor, we have had the best moments living out our adventures in Legends of Andor. So it's my favorite game in the L group of the 20 that we have. And definitely, I think, my favorite game still overall because of the great memories we've had. So there's my GHIJKL second edition of the Alphabet Challenge video. I'd love to hear what your favorite games are in these letters. Leave that down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up, and it'd be terrific if you'd choose to subscribe to the channel as well. As always, thanks for watching. This is Billy Indiana, signing off.